If you've ever seen one of those hour of code tutorials, you might have seen something that looks like this. Player move up. And so whatever tutorial it is, or whatever platform it's using, this would generally make the player move up, and then there's also player move down, player move left, player move right. But this looks a little too easy to be true. How does the script know that move up specifically makes the player move up? Well, generally what they're not showing you for simplicity of the tutorial is something, well, at least in Lua would be function move up and then an end. And between the function move up and the end, there's the code responsible for coding the method move up. I like to think of functions as the code behind a method. When using given Roblox methods, there's a limited amount of things you can do because Roblox can't account for every single thing or every single method you might want to create. So, for example, there's no game.workspace.brick1 appear method, or there's no brick2 disappear method, because Roblox didn't account for me wanting to use this, and why should they? So, if we want to make our own methods, we're going to have to make custom methods with functions. So the general form, or formula for a function, I like to call it formula, but it's just the general way I write them, is function, custom, method, and then an end. And then this is the code for the custom method. And then here, you can now use this method by just saying custom method, and whatever code you wrote in here would run. One important thing to note is that you can't call a function or custom method on an object. Before we could say object remove, but just know that you can't say object custom method, because only regular Roblox methods can be used with a can be used to call directly on an object. The goal of a method is to change the properties of an object when you're calling the method on that object. But we can also say custom method and then object. And we can use the object as a specific request. Then here, we can refer to that object as SR. So whatever we put in here is maintained into here. Afterwards, we can say sr.property equals value. So the way we change properties of objects, or the way we change objects with custom methods and functions, is by putting them in the specific request or parameter, and then that gets carried on in the specific request or parameter of the custom method in the function, from which we can change here by referring to it as SR, because we just wrote SR in here. Say we wrote SRX, we could refer to this as SRX here. So here I use the example game.workspace.brick1 appear. I'm going to copy and paste this down. So how do we make something like a custom method for appear or a custom method for disappear? Well, let's just start by writing function appear and then function disappear. Since we're going to be changing objects, we have to have a specific request for the object, so let's just call it part. And we could call this part or brick here. We don't have to use the same word, but we might as well just call them both part inside the parentheses. So now, when we call the custom method, we're going to be saying appear workspace.brick1, and then disappear game.workspace.brick1. So these will call these custom methods. But we don't have anything in here that changes the part that we select as a specific request. So we have to say part.transparency equals 0 and part.canCollide equals true. Note that these properties are the same that we have to make part or brick 1 appear here. So then part.transparency equals 1 and part.canCollide equals false. This will make it disappear. So I'm going to erase this. So let's test this. I'm going to take a generic part here. So this part is named half. So if we want to make this disappear, we can say game.workspace.half, and then we can just say disappear game.workspace.half. So here, whatever's written here will be carried on to the function disappear. So when I have the same thing here as part, it's almost like writing part equals game.workspace.half, because this is carried over into the specific request here. So say we wrote ASDF here, it would almost be like writing ASDF equals game.workspace.part. So I'm just going to say disappear game.workspace.half and then wait 1. And if we want the brick to reappear, we can just say appear game.workspace.half. And that happened instantly, so I'm going to put a timer on it. Wait 5. So it disappeared and reappeared. And we can say this for any brick. So the spawn location, we could change that too. So game.workspace.spawn location, game.workspace.spawn location, and this will now change the spawn location. So how can we take this and put it into the obby runner script that we have? Well, I'm going to copy and paste these two functions we just created into the obby runner script. And now wherever we see the properties to make brick, let's say brick 1 appear, we can just use the function appear. So appear game.workspace.brick 1. So I'm going to replace this for wherever we see properties that make a brick appear. So brick 2, here for brick 3, and I can do the same thing for disappear. So this is where we want brick 1 to disappear. So disappear game.workspace.brick 1. I can copy and paste this for whatever we want to disappear and just change the number. So in the last tutorial, I said we could loop the script by saying script.disabled equals true, and then script.disabled equals false. But I also put a disclaimer there that any code within a function will stop. Now that we're using functions, we can no longer use this, as it won't run. I have to make a function to make this repeat. So I can wrap this line of code here within something called function repeat. When I say something called, it could be function loop, but whatever we name it. P. Then end. So this function here will just execute this line of code whenever called. So I can say repeat. The first line of code that will be executed is line 40 as of this, or as of now. And then this will call this function repeat, and then this will run, calling these two functions. But then when it reaches the end, it just stops. So the way we can make it loop is by recalling the function. So every time the function is about to stop, it recalls itself. So this should loop the script, or the obby. And it does. Objects in Roblox game development, like any of the containers here, workspace for example, base plate, or part, have events associated with them that fire when the event occurs. So if I were to search parts on wiki.roblox.com, you'll see there's an events section here. And for example, this is specific to parts. Touch ended is fired when an object stops touching it, and touched is fired in the event that an object comes in contact with it. I'm going to open a script here, and here you can see an example of a function called by a custom method. So similar to how we can use a custom method to call a function, we can use an event with a connection line to call a function as well. So the general form for a connection line is event, or is object.event connect custom method, where custom method is again just the name of the function we created. Connect is a method that runs other functions, or that runs other custom methods. That runs function. And here, the specific request of connect. The specific request is the name of the function we want to run. So similar to how we could say object operation, we can also say event connect function. And what I mean by that, or function name, like custom method. So what I mean by this is that when we use a colon here, we're saying perform this operation on this object. But when we use the colon here, we're saying perform this function on this event occurring. So connection line is like saying perform this function on this event occurring. So for an example, let's try to make a script that when I'm in my obby and I miss and I fall, instead of falling to my death if the base plate wasn't here, I would instead be teleported above the spawn location. So I'm going to remove this. And so before we get started, we're going to use the method move_to vector3.new. And so what this does is it moves a model, or the object is a model. So object, and it just teleports an object to specific 3D coordinates. When an event occurs, similar to a specific request, there are specific occurrences that happen with the event. When you cause an event through a connection line to trigger a function, any specific occurrences that happen with that event can be defined in the function's parentheses as parameters. For example, in the event that an object is touched, the specific occurrence is the object that touches it. And in the event that a child is added to, let's say, the workspace, so workspace.childAdded, the specific occurrence is the object that's added into the workspace. We're going to say SO here. So SO for specific occurrence that happens with the event. Say we use the method object.touch. So game.workspace.baseplate.touched and we want to make a function that teleports players back to the spawn location. So function teleport. And there's no meaning to the word teleport other than I'm naming the function that. So then I would say game.workspace.baseplate.touched connect teleport. When we worked with custom methods, we would have the specific requests in both the custom methods parentheses and the functions parentheses. For connection lines, specific occurrences are already defined by the event you are using and get carried over to the function. So you only have to define what you are naming the specific occurrences within the parentheses of the function. They're assumed to be a part of that event, and they're assumed to be carried over to the teleport function here. So any specific occurrences, SO1, SO2, SO3, etc., don't have to go here like when we did a custom method. So specific occurrence. In this case, the specific occurrence is the part of the player that comes into contact with the base plate. So I'm going to make an assumption here. When I put my 3D character in game, you'll see that there's player, and then there's all the 3D parts here that might touch the base plate. But I'm going to make an assumption, because we're not going to be able to use if statements in this tutorial, that only players will touch the base plate. So this brick isn't going to touch the base plate, no falling bricks will touch the base plate, this won't fall onto the base plate. And this is a risky assumption, but as long as no other part touches the base plate, we should be good. So I'm going to take the base plate, make it unlocked. I'm going to scale it down so it's not touching any of these bricks here. I'm going to move it over. So it doesn't touch or come in contact with any of these bricks. So assuming the only part that touches the base plate is a part of the player's character, then the specific occurrence's parent is the character's model. We can move the player by using model move to vector3.new position coordinates. So I'm going to say so.parent move to vector3.new, and then these are the coordinates here for the position we want to move it to. So right here, I'm going to move the spawn location up and get its coordinates. Say we want it to move right here. I'm going to copy this position, move this down to where it was. I'm going to go to the script and put these position coordinates here. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to try it. So every time we fall off the platform here, we get teleported right back here. And all you'd have to do now is set the base plate's transparency equal to 1. If this helped you, consider liking, subscribing, or joining the Roblox group Scripting Sense.